Hello everybody and welcome back to I think sort of a short summation of everything I know and everything I've learned in my understanding of the Industries DLC. So if we look at the Industries DLC, this isn't so much a tutorial, this is just kind of like, again, kind of what I know, what I figured out about it so far. Let's say we want to build a farming area on this fertile ground. So we need to start with the farming main building. This system is basically like Park Life. We're also going to be listening to the Synthetic Dawn radio station that actually came with the DLC if you bought the Plus version, which is definitely not recommended. So we have the main farm building. Just like in Park Life, you have to build the main entrance, right? And this is going to keep track of what's going on here. Once we do this, we're going to be able to create the chain. And I always kind of forget where the tabs are. Now they're in this new industrial tab here. So we have the primary producing things. We build some crops here. Some different kinds we can set out. So for the primary producing, we can sort of move these around between the different kinds, like make them potato, but this is all just aesthetics. These are all producing crops, what are called crops. So every single industry works the same. Oil, forestry, ore, it all works the exact same, right? You produce a raw material and it can be produced, or it can be processed into one of two different secondary materials. And then those could be used to make tertiary materials or just be sold at a profit. If we go here, let's say, okay, flour mill. And maybe we also want like a milking parlor, or maybe we just want a big animal build thing. So we do need, we can build storage for the raw material. One of the things that I've noticed though is when you build this, set it on balance. When you build this, it's going to default to balance, and what it's going to try to do is get up to 50% frantically, like super frantically. What that means is this building is going to be importing. There are going to be trucks coming from the main freeway with crops, despite the fact that we are actually producing crops ourselves. We're producing crops ourselves. Okay? Like this right here, this truck right here. Look at this. Think about this for a second. We just produce crops. We could be storing it in this large grain silo, but instead we're not. But there's stuff on the way. Stuff is definitely coming for this large. See, we're importing. We watch this here. Oh, it actually looks like some of the other areas are, huh? We're doing a little bit of importing, right? We're getting some trucks from outside the map that are coming in to import to here. So it is trying to fill up frantically. We're getting some of the trucks. We do actually already have an industry area up here. We're just doing this as a demonstration, right? So we do actually already have some industries. So, but this is now a working farm area. These areas here, but as we could see though, right? This, we have one truck in use. We saw that, right? Can we go hunt it down? This is it right here. So this belongs to the medium crop field. So this one truck, okay? The trucks, what this tells us is that the vehicles that are owned by this building are the vehicles that deliver the crops. Okay, these vehicles do not go fetch things. And that makes sense because this is a field that just produces crops. So it doesn't need to fetch anything, right? It doesn't need to fetch anything. These buildings, though, the same thing applies to these buildings. They don't fetch crops. These trucks, I mean, the trucks that belong to the flour mill, they do not go and fetch crops, the inputs that they need. What has to happen here is this needs to get a delivery. So it is getting a delivery from either one of these silos or from one of the fields. Like when these crops are done, it could choose to sort of randomly, right? That's the problem with the AI in this game, is it's just all random, right? But it could randomly decide to come out and come fill this up if the timings work out, right? If this needs crop at the time that this needs to deliver its crops. So we are producing this, but it's not delivering to this point. What we might actually need to do is just give these people little bits of turnaround and stuff, just to give them the option to come here, turn around, and do some little turnarounds and stuff, so they don't have to, you know, drive around as much. But for the most part, you know, that's one thing that I think is important to remember, is that these vehicles deliver the produced thing. So what can happen is these vehicles can get stuck exporting if you're producing too much of these crops. If you don't have room for the crops in a silo or in a secondary processing plant, these can actually fill up with crops because these vehicles can get tied up trying to export. If these vehicles are trying to drive off the map, it can take a long time for them to go where they need to go and get back, right? Depending on where they are in the space, in the total space of the map. That's why it's good to have them offload to either a silo or a rail, because once it's offloaded the silo, then these trucks here that belong to the silo are the ones that are going to move the inventory around. The problem is this does create a lot of like trucks just tend to go in circles a lot. If we look at the warehouse, right, we can put down a warehouse for the secondary goods, right? Storehouses like these, the barns and the silos, are for the primary, and those change with every single industry, but they all work the same, right? The ore has its own storehouses, oil has its own storehouses, so on and so forth. But the warehouses, however, the warehouses are only for secondaries, and you have to select the type that you want. So we could put animal products, and then we could put flowers. And so these now, this gives us 20 freight vehicles to manage the inventory. But it does, again, these trucks do not go out and collect flour. This is the building that delivers the flour. This building has 5 vehicles that deliver flour. I think it's kind of a failure on the game if this small crop field has 5 vehicles, and the medium one has 8, and the large one has 10. Why does the flour mill only have 5 vehicles? Because what happens a lot of the times is this thing can fill up. If these vehicles aren't smart about where they decide to deliver this flour, they can get tied up very easily. Which is why ultimately you do kind of want the warehouses. Unfortunately, you don't know if this is going to deliver. You don't know if this is going to want to deliver to the warehouse. You don't know if it's going to want to deliver to a flour warehouse, you know, that we have set over here. You don't know if it's going to want to deliver to the rail station. You don't know what it's going to do, and you can't tell it what to do. You're just hoping. You're literally just crossing your fingers and hoping to, like, we just, oh, wow, look at that. This one actually delivered from here to here. I'm actually, like, color me impressed. Like, that's insane. That's insane, but sometimes it might decide to do something else. But that's the idea. So this only has 8 vehicles, right? So this can deliver its animal products to here. And then once this gets excess animal products, it can export it using its own trucks, so it doesn't tie up the trucks of the actual producers. That's the idea, but either way, it does create an immense amount of vehicles, because if we look at this large warehouse, if we look at a system that's already sort of working, this vehicle here, this system here, what happens is everybody tries to deliver to this large warehouse, and then the large warehouse just has to deliver it on to the rail. So it's like, why not just go directly to the rail, right? Well, exactly. You could actually probably, I'm pretty convinced that you could actually avoid building warehouses completely if you had the proper rail and or airports, you know, cargo airports and stuff like that set up. The problem is, if you don't have the rail, the trucks, these trucks like we were talking about, are going to try to export them themselves, and that's when you don't have enough trucks. That's when you have a truck factor. But I still wish these were a little rebalanced. I wish either the warehouses had more trucks, or the producers had a little bit more trucks, or maybe both. So now we're getting a lot of, what we're doing is, again, we built these warehouses. The game, one of the flaws with the AIs is obsessed with filling this up to 50%. So we're getting all this traffic over here. Even though we're naturally producing animal products, we're actually pulling in all of these animal products because they desperately want to get this to 50% because this is set to balance. So they're desperately trying to get this to 50%. Well, if we set this to empty, it's just going to empty out and it's not going to do anything. If we set this to fill, it's going to fill up and not do anything. So we can't really use fill or empty. They have no real purpose. Empty kind of works. Empty kind of works because empty will actually still get deliveries. I think we have this big warehouse set to empty. Yeah, we have this set to empty, but it's still getting deliveries. So I'm not sure what the difference between empty and balance is. Empty almost seems kind of like the way you want to do it, to be honest. Fill, though, fill definitely will lock it up. If you have it on fill, it will just fill up to 100% and get stuck. At least that's what I was noticing the first week of the DLC. That's something that they definitely need to fix, because I would have liked to have seen these be different descriptors, like allow imports or save for local production, and different terminology that actually lets you control what's going on with the goods. Balanced, filled, and empty doesn't let you actually decide what these goods are going to be used for and where these goods, you're allowing these goods to come from. That's the fundamental problem. So like, here we go. So presumably this is now asking for crops. We should see a delivery from this silo that has crops, but we're not. We're getting a delivery from over here. Why? I don't know. We have crops that are much closer than that, but regardless, the AI is being the AI. So it's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? But this is essentially the industry system. And you do this, you literally do this 4 times, right? So this isn't really a review. I'm just kind of explaining what I know about this. So what I know is, just to get a kind of an understanding here, is that these are all the same. Look at these. I mean, I'm clicking on the forestry. This just shows you, this doesn't give you any information about your city. This just shows you how does the forestry work. Well, you create forestry, then you create paper, and you create planned timber. And then you can move that into the luxury goods, which basically, so a luxury good, if we look over here, we have a bakery. So the bakery creates the pastries, which is like a luxury good, which is just sold at a profit. Material cost $2,000, production value $6,000. So we're just making a profit off of running this engine, right? This requires 3 different products. These all happen to be from the same industry, but there are factories. I can show you a factory over here. There are factories that are indeed that use multiple industries. So this is glass from the ore industry, and this is crops from the agricultural industry. Now this is a lemonade factory, and I'm actually shocked that it's working right now, because usually this isn't working. What we have over here, because this is too far away from the source of the glass and the grain, or the crop, right? Despite the fact that we have crops here, and we have glass here, more often than not, this thing is constantly complaining about not having glass and crops, because it refuses to get the crops and the glass from these areas. Instead, it grabs them from the actual sources. More often than not, I see the trucks coming from over here or over here. Well, that takes time. So when this is begging for crops, these send out a vehicle, but it takes too long to get there, and then this thing ends up having like a 20% uptime, despite the fact that we have the warehouses here. So I think it's a little bit of a flaw that there's no sort of proximity AI, that it doesn't prioritize this warehouse full of glass. Because you can see that there's none of these vehicles are in use. We have 61% full. This is on balance. This should be emptying out. At the very least, we should be exporting 11% of this glass, but we're not. It's just sitting here. It's literally just sitting here. So I don't know, I'm really not sure exactly what the warehouses ultimately do. I don't think they're quite right. I think there needs to be some fixes there. I think there needs to be a few things that get fixed, but basically, so you can create these, the cool thing is you can create these factories that use multiple different goods, but it ends up being kind of a logistic nightmare trying to make sure these things can actually be filled. Because I could have built this by the agriculture, but then it would have taken longer to get the ore product, right? And you would think the warehouses fix that, but it turns out, in my experience, they don't, because the warehouses aren't the ones that supply the factory. It seems to almost just be a random selection process. So that's the industries, right? So what I was basically trying to say was, for the most part, every single one is the same, right? It's one raw into 2 things back into luxury. And if we click on farming, same thing. Ore, same thing. Oil, same thing. All of these are literally the exact same. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That's not a bad thing. It's just that here's the storage ones for the ore. Here's the processing plants. Here's the primary extractors. Here's oil, same thing. You got 5 of these, you got 4 of these, so on and so forth, right? So it's literally the exact same system, which is also kind of a ripping off of the park life thing too, right? We can come into here, we can get this map mode, or not map mode, but we can get this menu, and it can tell us a little bit about what's going on with these crops. It says that we're actually exporting 16 tons of them for some reason. So this is basically telling us, we can look at this and see that, okay, we have a lot of excess crop just getting presumably wasted, right, in a sense. We're only using 8 tons of the 24 to actually create secondary goods. So this is telling us right away we need to build more secondaries to balance that out, because the primary doesn't sell for much. So we do want more secondaries. So that we can make more money. So now this might be a more adequate balance. Now, like realistically, it's not, because the amount of fields that we would need to power a large flour mill like this would be just massive, would be incredibly massive. So I kind of wish like you needed more primary than secondary, because I like the way these look. I love the way these look. I mean, there's the greenhouse version, which is actually not bad, but not great. There's wheat, again, all these are creating just the regular material. They just look different. There's cotton. I mean, just aesthetically, these things look great when you make them into bigger fields, right? Like this, you kind of combine them and make these bigger fields, which look great. But it's still kind of a weird balance between these and the secondary processing. You need way more secondary processing than primary. It's kind of silly, I think. I think that's a little backwards. But yeah, so basically the industries, that's how the basic industries work. And it works the same whether it's oil or oil forestry. But the cool thing is, it's still, that's not necessarily a bad thing on the game, because look how cool our ore industry looks. You know what I mean? Like, look how cool these assets look. It's really just about building something that looks awesome. You know what I mean? And it tends to make a lot of money. This stuff does tend to make a lot of money. So it's really just about building something that's awesome. So I didn't quite explain this, but every industry also has these other buildings that I guess what you would classify as like the auxiliary buildings. So these are for ore. We're looking at one of them here. We have the worker barracks, which increase efficiency by 5% each, and the ore industry maintenance buildings. So these increase the storage efficiency, if we could find one right here. So storage efficiency is increased by 125%. So we could build more of these to try to get that up even more. I guess that feeds into this, I think. How much storage these areas can hold, I'm guessing. And then we have the worker barracks that just increase work efficiency up to 5% each, up to 200%. So that's kind of neat. And I think for the most part, they look kind of good. I don't know exactly why we have all these barracks here. Like, you know, why the game wants us to build all these barracks. But I guess, I don't know. I think they kind of look interesting, but it's kind of depressing a little bit too, to think that people are like living here and then working in the fields all day. I don't know. That's just kind of like, yeah. But there you have it. They do look kind of nice. They do look kind of nice. Like here we have sort of like a little camp. I almost kind of look at these as like little Boy Scout camps or something like that, except for these are workers that go work in the fields all day. To clarify though, these people actually, there are workers that get assigned to this, but people don't actually people don't actually live here. This doesn't increase population. It's actually kind of weird that this actually has workers. In fact, it specifically needs 3 highly educated workers in this building. I don't understand working in this building. I don't understand the thought process on that. I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to work with like a real-time mod. Like, do people actually have to go to work here? I don't know, because really I don't think that those needed to add workers, but they do. They do. One thing I've noticed is that these industry areas don't affect the industrial demand. This is, I think, going to be a hot topic of contention going forward, but I find that these large areas, despite the fact that these are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of jobs, like for example, look at this, we have 2,000 available workers. 2,000 available workers here, and we still have industrial demand. Some industrial demand. Because shouldn't that be based on like I would just think about how much we're producing, you know? Either way, my experience is we have 1,000. We're short 1,000 workers there. We've been kind of building like crazy people recently in the city when we're actually like doing the streams. But one of the stories is usually I notice that if you have industrial demand, you start building a bunch of this stuff, it barely affects it, if at all. It barely affects it, which I think is really disappointing. Which is why we still had to make a huge zone here for industrial, just regular industrial, because this was the only way to satisfy the demand. And we also have tons of offices too. We've also put in tons of offices in here. We have offices over here, and we just have, you know, a good amount of offices over here. So despite the fact, right? Despite the fact we have these massive industrial areas with thousands and thousands of jobs, we still had to build all those offices, all that regular industry, vanilla industry, which I think ended up looking good, but that's beyond the point. I just think it's kind of silly. I haven't been able to notice any difference there. I mean, we do have the forestry up here too. I don't think it looks particularly good, but there's some of the forestry. Again, it works the exact same. You have the storage units for the raw material. You have warehouses that you assign to the secondary, and it can only be assigned to one secondary at a time. Here's the secondary processing. Here's the primary extraction. The other thing is that the industry adds tolls, which for the most part I've noticed don't have much of an effect. should just raise that up to full price. I usually just, every toll I ever make, I just put it to full price, and just as many people go on it. The detour, to avoid a toll, the AI detour has to be very, very, very relatively short. It's always going to be longer than the main road, right? But if I was going to create a detour path here, obviously if I connected there to there, they'd just take this. They'd avoid the toll. So the toll does work, but they're not avoiding it to take this system, right? They're still using this toll road. A better example would be like over here. We still have tons and tons of people coming through here, despite the fact that this area here is not really that much of a detour. It just sort of comes up here and then you backtrack. And in fact, this is actually a double toll. If you come this way, you're getting double tolled. You have to either come here and get tolled or come this way and get tolled. So the tolls do matter, but for the most part, if they can get to where they're going to go faster using the tolled road, they will take it. They will take it. It has to be, the difference has to be negligible for them to actually avoid the toll road, which is kind of an unfortunate thing in my mind. It doesn't really, basically, the toll roads do not work for me as a traffic management tool because the AI is so willing to drive on these. Actually, we haven't actually cranked up the price on this since we've made the bigger version of it. So the toll roads, I think for the most part, are awesome visually, and that's kind of like the entire. I think this entire DLC can be summarized by the idea that it's awesome visually, but it's not particularly crazy in terms of like how it changes the game or as a tool for fixing traffic. I don't think it really works that well as a tool for fixing traffic. So here we actually have the post offices now, right? This is the other thing that was added. So with the post offices, for the most part, I don't really understand much about these, right? This video is just what I know. I look at here and I see that there's room for unsorted mail, there's room for sorted mail, and then all the post vans are in use, and then we can look around and see that a lot of areas don't have, haven't been visited by a van. But basically, these vans come out of the building. None of the post trucks are in use. I've never really seen any of these trucks in use that often. But anyways, I don't know. I think the trucks are supposed to deliver mail between post offices, but I've never really noticed them ever doing that. I don't understand what that's supposed to be all about. We do have a sorting center over here, which again, I'm not sure. We have room here for unsorted mail. We have room for sorted mail. So to me, it makes me feel like we don't need another one, but I don't know. We still have available post trucks. So to me, it makes me feel like we don't need more than one of these for the size of city that we have. But I don't really understand what this actually does. Presumably this is delivering mail to the post offices and accepting the mail that comes in through outside the city, right? Because we import mail. Why we're not exporting mail, I'm not really sure. We're importing a large amount of mail, but none of our citizens are sending out mail, really? I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. We're actually producing a lot. We're importing a lot of goods. Interesting. I haven't checked on this in a while. So we're importing mail, right? And presumably it comes through here and then gets distributed to the mail spots. But the mail, for the most part, mail is not something that the Sims ever complain about. People don't complain that they're not getting mail. People don't complain that they're not getting mail. The only thing is people get happy if you give them mail, right? So it's kind of like road maintenance. It's kind of like park maintenance. These are things you don't have to build. It's just like you can build them if you want their effects. Like if you just, in this case, if you just want people to be a little extra happy, you can build it. What's a really good actual comparison to that? They basically work like parks. At the end of the day, the post offices are basically just parks that cause traffic. It's like you're trading traffic. You're trading better traffic for happiness and land value, right? Land value. So it does help the areas level up, which is kind of a good thing. Which is, I mean, these are level 5 buildings over here and stuff like that. That doesn't... Oh, I made this historical? When did I do that? That's kind of funny. I like it, though. Nice little humble little house there amongst all the high-level houses. So yeah, so that's kind of... Those are the three main aspects of the DLC. The policies that they added, no big deal. You know, free Wi-Fi, I guess this just kind of like... It's kind of expensive, but it reduces mail, like the need to get mail. Automatic sorting. I mean, there's just some little things here. Nothing particularly crazy. I think they added some stuff here. You know, you can automate the tools. Bunch of the policies are kind of not that great. If we look over here at the industries, we can see some of the policies that we can activate here. There's only 3 of them. Improved logistics increases just the storage capacity at the areas. It doesn't actually increase the AI's capacity to make decisions, which is kind of unfortunate. You can increase the health of the workers by doing improved worker safety, work safety supervision. I mean, I don't know. Is that, you know what I mean? Is that good? Is that not good? I've never had like a health issue. I don't know why you'd ever do that necessarily, but it's only 1 simoleon per worker or something. I don't know. Like, it seems maybe it'd be kind of cheap, but. And then advanced automation is just like increases production output, increases building up. This is just a net gain. I mean, if the place is profiting, this is just going to mean it's just going to be profiting by more. So there's really no reason not to hit this button, I think. Which kind of makes it, it's like, why is it even there if you're just going to hit the button? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. Policies are kind of like not as interesting as park life, but even the park life ones, you got to admit, I don't know why power's going out of Ryan, but even the park life ones, right? If we actually think about these, I mean, I like main park and advertising campaign are great, but animal ethics, you know, these ones that just are specific to certain kinds of parks, I feel like you just always hit these buttons. You just always hit those buttons. I mean, there's some good stuff here though. This is still a good list of stuff. I feel like this is still a good list of stuff for a park. I feel like the industries, you needed more. You needed more. I kind of felt like when I looked at this list, like, it was kind of like they just didn't have any good ideas. They didn't have any good ideas. I mean, advanced automation, I mean, okay, that's a cool idea, but there's not really a decision point here. It just increases the output by 10%. I mean, why would you not want that? Increases the upkeep by 10%. But if your area is profiting, then it's just going to profit by more, right? Improved logistics, I mean, increasing the capacity. I mean, does this need a larger capacity? This can hold 16 tons. There's nothing here right now. You know, so I don't know if these areas need larger capacities. That's all it's saying. So I don't know. I don't know. But thank you so much, everybody, for watching this this video, where we kind of just go over in a very disorganized way kind of what I know about the Industries DLC, my understanding of the Industries DLC at this point. For the most part, it is a DLC that you get for the aesthetics, right? In the themed building, you get it so that you can build these really cool little areas. Like, if you think these areas look awesome, then that's why you get the Industries DLC. Not because like the system is going to be this awesome micromanagement. There's no micromanagement here at all except for just traffic. The traffic is the only micromanagement, and this thing makes it. These make tons of money. These do make tons of money. It's actually kind of broken how much money they make. Your city can be making hundreds of thousands per tick just because of these things. Right now we've been very like irresponsible with our spending, so our budget's like just out of whack. One of the things that's kind of noticing, I will add this at the very end here, is that the budget just goes up and down, up and down, up and down, because your income is so based on like the exports, like when these actual trains like actually deliver and stuff like that, and when the planes deliver, that when you make a delivery, you make a lot of money, and then when you don't deliver, you lose a lot of money. So it ends up kind of being a problem. But either way, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode. And if you guys have any questions on the Industries, just put them down below in the comments, and I will answer them. Thank you so much, everybody.